see that they're in a verbal or emotionally abusive relationship. I get asked that all the time. I think that's one of the biggest things that people reach out to me for, is for help, how to help a family member or a loved one. I want to give you some tough love around that. And somebody else is asking, what about my book? So I'll show you my book while I'm thinking of my answer here. Here's my book, Love You More, The Harrowing Tales of Lies, Sex Addiction, and Double Cross. You can buy it online anywhere that sells books. I also sell it to myself, the ebook, directly at a discounted price. If you want to save a little bit off the listed retail price, see the link in my bio and buy it from me directly. If you don't care, you're getting a digital version. But the paperback and the hardcover is available Amazon. It's available anywhere that sells those types of books. So, but thank you for asking me. So how do we help loved ones who are in the throes of a relationship? Well, this is an uncomfortable truth. You cannot help somebody see something until they're ready to see it. Have you ever noticed somebody's talking to you about something really, really pivotal, and suddenly your brain fizzes, and you almost like you can't hear them? You know they're talking, you hear the words, you know there's sound around you, but you can't take it in. That what's happening is that you're not ready, and your unconscious is actually blocking you from hearing it. I see it often when I was doing counseling. People were like, I don't, they would just, their mouth would go they would get a blank look on their face and like, I know you're saying something really important, but I can't take it in. That means I just said something that was out of time. I gave them an insight. They weren't ready. It may have been truthful, but they weren't ready to hear it. We only can hear what we're ready to hear. I know it happened to me. I write a book called The Passionate Marriage. I often reference it here on these lives by Dr. David Schnarf. When I first read it the first time, I couldn't read it. It was like reading another language. It didn't make sense to me. It wasn't until several years later that I picked it back up and I was ready to hear what it had to say that suddenly I could read it and it made sense to me. So those around you, you can scream, yell, beg, plead. You can even offer to pay them to see the truth. They will not see the truth until they're ready. And they'll resent you for all the effort that you're putting into it. They'll be mad because they'll feel like you're isolating them and making them make a choice, and they don't want to make a choice. So that means you've got to take time and be present. Learn how to really be present around someone that you know is in a situation that makes you personally uncomfortable. And for some of us, and this is part I don't understand, the part that I don't understand is why some of us make that a non-negotiable thing. Like, if you don't set limits with that guy, then I can't be in a relationship with you. Please. Why do we do that? I don't know why we do that, because now you've isolated them and you're probably one of the few people that they might eventually turn to, and now they don't have a relationship with you, and you're not going to be around when that moment comes and they're ready to hear. You won't be there to be able to give the feedback to them. The name of the book I just mentioned is called The Passionate Marriage. The Passionate Marriage by David Schnarf. Awesome book. It's about sex, by the way, how to have fantastic sex in an intimate relationship. So if you want, and David Schnarf, man, he's an amazing guy. He has one called Mind Mapping. I love his, he is a therapist. He's no longer alive. He passed away a couple years ago. He's a therapist that he would say things in a way that's like, ooh, brutal. I mean, like spot on truthful. So if you really want to kind of challenge yourself and look at yourself in a new way and look at how to have better intimacy, I highly recommend his work. He has another one called The Crucible, but The Passionate Marriage is the one I was referencing. So back to friendships and support, being family. Sit with this person, be a friend, zip your lip about the relationship. When they complain about the guy, but you can tell that they're not really ready to hear the truth, don't say more. Just say, oh, that sounds tough. Well, I'd have a tough time if that happened to me, So be present, be caring, but don't say, why are you still with him? I told you he was no good for you. Don't do that. All it does is it alienates them from you and they feel invalidated. There will come a point in the relationship where suddenly they start to wake up and they realize things are not good. And they will then begin to look for help around them and they will turn to you. But they will let you know when that's happening. And you will recognize, because there's a readiness and an openness that there wasn't before. And that's when you can say, I have been very concerned. I want to support you. I know this is a process and you're having a hard time, but I'm here. Let me know how I can help you. Let me know how it can help you. So that's what it looks like. But what does it mean for us who watch this and we can't intervene? And I know this because I watched my sister who passed away in June she was in several very abusive relationships. Each time she'd get into a new abusive relationship, it'd break my heart. In fact, it wasn't the last one. It was the second one. She took there's a test you guys can take. I bet you didn't know. It's called Prepare. PREPARE it's an acronym for the name of the test. It's a premarital assessment of what kind of relationship you're going to have with your partner. It kind of identifies main areas that you typically face, like how you handle chores, what are your families about, are you traditional marriage or non, how do you deal with about money, all those big things. And it looks at your combined answers collectively, and it has over a 90% accuracy rate to predict whether or not you're going to have a good relationship or not. Yeah, it's pretty intimidating. So she and her partner took it, and then her partner refused to sit and hear the results. Now, I didn't feel it was fair for me to go back and tell her the results when I can't tell him the results. What do you do with that? So I wouldn't tell her the results. I said, I'm sorry. I have to sit with both of you, and you have to, for me to tell you. You can't take it alone. It has to be administered to you by a psychologist or a trained clinician. So you guys can't have access to it, but you can go into the site and find out who gives this assessment. And there's also one for blended families and one for new people who've never been married before. They have a variety of them. So years later, as the marriage is breaking up with this guy, it's called Prepare, PREPARE, Prepare. I will put a link in my link bio so you guys can find it. So wait, when I get done with this, I'll immediately go to my link tree and put it in so you guys can find it. It's a great assessment. I've taken it myself before my last marriage. Interestingly enough, the guy lied. So if you have someone who's really good at narcissism and who's sociopathic, that's who I got in a relationship with. They can but I saw some of the lie inventory questions spiked, but because that's the problem with me being my own interpreter. I didn't listen to what this test told me. I didn't say, oh, we should throw this test out. It's not accurate. It said it wasn't an accurate result. I ignored that. So the failure of it wasn't on the test. The failure of it was on me. Yeah. So, but back to the story. My sister then came back as the years were over, or the relationship was breaking up and coming to an end. She said, all I said to her in the early part, because I wouldn't tell her the results, I said, it's warning that this is going to be a difficult relationship. That's what I told her. It's warning this is going to be a difficult relationship. The relationship is breaking up and she's getting divorced. She came back crying and she said, I told you, or you told me it would be a difficult relationship, but I didn't know that you meant it would be that bad. And I said, what do you think difficult means? She goes, I know, but I didn't think you meant that bad. Yeah, I said, yeah, I meant that bad. I said, but I couldn't say because the two of you wouldn't sit for the exam or the test results. It wasn't fair to give you them. What would you do with it? You two needed to do it together. He wouldn't do it with you. I wasn't going to do that. It just was, to me, unethical. I wasn't going to do that. So yeah, it's a great way, but there will come a point when your friend or family member will have this point. Now, maybe it may be years. It may be years. You may have to, with my sister, it wasn't till just recently, just as she was getting ill, that she realized that this last relationship was as ill as every other relationship she was in. And unfortunately, she'd never done the work between their relationships, so she wasn't healthy, and she kept repeating this, getting in the same very devastating type of relationships. And ultimately, the accumulation of all of it, I am determined, killed her. I really believe that it led to a direct running down of her to such severity that it took her life, that it destroyed her. And I know how many of us who've been any kind of length of time have seen your health deteriorate. I tell you at the end of the book that I had suspicions that I was being actually injured physically, secretively, physically being injured in my relationship. But I also know the stress was causing all sorts of havoc on my body, all sorts of havoc, weight fluctuations, sleep problems, just racing heart, racing mind, all of this was really playing lots of chaos and havoc on me. I now have enough subscribers